The Walking Dead Season 6, Episode 8, start to finish. Now, this was actually a pretty interesting mid-season finale because overall, I did enjoy it, but it wasn't nearly as awesome as I was hoping for it to be. To be completely honest, I thought it was fairly anticlimactic for what I was expecting because it was like the tower fell down and it's like I'm expecting just mass chaos. I thought we would lose at least 3 people in this episode, to be completely honest. We do lose one person, and when they showed that she actually got bit, honestly, the first thing I said was like, that's number one, because I really thought they would kill multiple people during this episode. That was exactly what I was expecting, and the interesting thing about this, and this is something they may have done on purpose, and I'm pretty sure they did, just like with the whole Glenn thing, I was going through it, and then it got to the ending scene, and they're walking through all the walkers, like they're just, everything's simple. It's like, alright, zombie guts all over us, we're gonna get out of here very slowly. And then this little kid starts saying mom. And I knew it was gonna end there because I was checking how close to the end of the episode I was. I was like, it's gonna end right here. But as soon as he started to open his mouth, I was like, was like this was the sad half of the chaos, and I think when we start up again, that's gonna be the crazy episode because things are gonna get really crazy. They're supposed to, and there was some scenes, like there was stuff that I thought was gonna happen. I thought for sure Carl was gonna get shot. I didn't think he would die. I thought that he was gonna get shot, and then things were gonna be crazy from then on out. He didn't get shot, but things were definitely crazy from then on out because that's when the house got swarmed, and that was pretty much when it was like, this is either gonna work or it's not gonna work. And we knew it was gonna work for some people, and I still personally think when things start up and that kid's like mom, because it started off because I had subtitles on. It started off really simple. It was like mom, and then it was like he just kept getting louder. It seemed like he got a little bit lower, but he was getting louder as he kept saying it. And I'm like, all he has to do is speak, and that's pretty much it. Like, if he speaks, that could be enough to make one zombie out of all those things turn to him and just try to grab him. And that's pretty much it, because he will scream. Like, I mean, it's clear. He was opening his mouth, he's just talking and stuff. So if he gets grabbed, that's it. It's going to be him screaming, all eyes on him, and then everyone's going to try to make a break for it. And that's just not going to work for everyone. So something crazy. I feel like that's how they kind of played it. Like, we lost a character, and it was kind of the sad sort of slow play with Deanna, who, was kind of going through and having like her final moments. And I loved the scene she had with Rick, which was pretty awesome. It started off really funny because I knew she wasn't a zombie, and he was about to hit her, and she's like, it's me. I love that scene because it was just funny to me. I was like, that was just really funny. It's like, you gotta be careful with stuff like that. But I kind of thought that was a funny scene. And then when she was actually in the bed, that was just a really good moment. Like, she flat out told him. She finally told him, and it was like, my son, like, because she had to ask, like, are you going to look after him like one of your people? And, of course, he was still in his weird sort of in-between stage. And she kind of laid it out for him, like, look, I didn't help you because of this or that. And she also said something else funny about, like, him being able to grow an epic beard. But she helped him because they're all the same people. It's not Rick's people and Deanna's people. It's just them. They're all inside of Alexandria, which is, I guess, gone at this point. It's not exactly a thing anymore. But, that was pretty much it. That's what happened. Like, it's just mass chaos, and we're all in it together. That's literally what it was. So I loved that moment that she had. She actually had a really great moment with Michonne as well. Like, Michonne had some pretty interesting moments in this episode. She had a lot of focus, which I thought was kind of surprising. But there was a lot of talk about what Michonne wants and what Michonne is looking for in her own life now, because she's kind of gone from this wife and mother to this woman who's a part of this really tight-knit group, and that's very different from where she came from. We had that episode where we got to see her past and how they were inside of the camp and everything, and the camp, fell apart, and that's how she lost her child and how she lost her boyfriend or husband or whoever. And I believe that was her brother or his brother, something like that, a brother or a brother-in-law, something like that. But she's come a long way, so now it's like Deanna kind of puts it out there, which is something they haven't really talked about in a while, is, what does Michonne want? Like, what does she want for her own life? So I thought it was kind of cool that they gave her a lot of focus, and we get to know what the Latin was that's written on the map, and it's basically that the pain that we feel will help us someday. I believe it was very similar to that. And I mean, that relates to everyone. That's very relevant to every single character in this series at this point. So, that doesn't, it's not directed exactly towards Michonne, but obviously that's who she was talking to, but that goes across the board for every single person in this show. And it's just going to continue to grow. Like, that's just going to keep happening, where that pain is going to help them. It's going to hurt them, but it's going to help them grow in some tiny aspect. It's just going to work. And I think in one way that we're really going to see that pick up in the second half of the season is certainly between Carol and Morgan, who had a crazy encounter during this episode. And Carol, she would not let that wolf go. Like, she was talking about taking down Morgan to get to him. And of course it was sort of that weird sentence where it's like, I will kill you so that I can kill him because I don't want anyone else to die. And it's just one of those funny sentences where you can say it that way, but you can see the irony in it, but you know exactly what she means, and it makes perfect sense. And they take each other down. Well, Morgan actually takes Carol down, which I thought she was number 2 for a second. I thought they actually killed her, and I thought for a second that she fell on her knife and it would have killed her. So I was glad that didn't happen, because that would have been insane if they had it where Morgan actually killed Carol. That would have been nuts. But fortunately that didn't happen. Then of course Morgan gets knocked out. Made me really mad at him again, because the wolf knocked him out. And then we have Rosita, Eugene, and I cannot think of the other girl's name, but they all come in and it's like, oh great, he has a hostage. And the one person who can help everyone, we have our one doctor, and up and coming doctor, I guess. She gets kidnapped, and I don't know, once again, how they've done some things in this episode kind of makes it seem like once we come back, that'll be the crazy half of the tower falling, because this was the setup half where the tower fell, and we thought it was going to be just hysteria and everything, but it was actually really calm. And now we have a wolf with a hostage. We have, Carol and Morgan, I'm sure they'll wake up and they'll be mad at each other, or mostly Carol will be mad at Morgan, but that'll be solved, no big deal. And then we have everyone in a neat little line with zombie guts all over them, and then someone's gonna break from this line and they're gonna have to just scatter or stand completely still, because they have guts on them. Try to stand still and not get, bring attention to yourself, I guess. But they definitely did some sort of lead up stuff for this episode, and hopefully it does pay off really well once things start back up in February, which always seems like forever. Like, this show always starts up in February, and I'm always so accustomed to shows starting up in January, but we always see a full month in the new year with just no Walking Dead. So it'll start up back in February, but I did enjoy this one. It was fun. It wasn't, like I said, I liked the episode. I thought I would be losing my mind about how amazing it was, but it wasn't, to be totally honest. I was a little disappointed with the ending, because it was that's when it seemed like it was about to get really crazy, especially because of the comics. There is so much about that ending scene where I'm like, that's mostly what makes me think this was the setup half, and when we come back, the mid-season premiere is going to be much crazier than this finale, based on what I've read from the comics. That's how I'm assuming it's going to go, and I hope it does, because if they're doing what I think they're about to do, it's going to be nuts. And I don't even know how they're going to play it out, because it's very different, obviously, from the comics, different characters and situations and all sorts of stuff. So some people, could end up in totally different places, stuff like that. So I don't really know, but I'm pretty sure I can hazard a guess as to where they're going to take things. And also for anyone who doesn't watch Into the Badlands, if you guys skipped over like that first commercial break they had, they showed like a 2 minute preview for what was going to be coming up in the next season or the second half of the season, and it's the scene. It's a scene with Abraham, Sasha, and Daryl, and they're in their truck. They drive up. They're coming down the road. They come across. I think it was probably like 6 or 7 guys on motorcycles. I don't know where all these motorcycles keep coming from, but it's like 6 or 7 guys on motorcycles. They all have guns. Excuse me. They tell them to get out, and it's like, okay, everything you guys have, that truck, fuel in the truck, and the guy goes through like a list, and he says like all this, it's Walking Dead dialogue, and it was just like the truck, the fuel in the truck, your weapons, the little napkins you have in the glove compartment, this and that, whatever you have is no longer yours. And I believe it was Sasha who says, then whose is it? And the guy says that everything that belongs to you now belongs to Negan. So Negan is officially going to be in the second half of this season, which is very exciting. He was just recently cast, and I mentioned this, I believe it was maybe 2 episodes ago, may have been the last one. But they cast him as Jeffrey Dean Morgan. I can only say that he was John Winchester from Supernatural. He was in the movie The Losers. He was like the captain, and he was in some other stuff. But just look up Jeffrey Dean Morgan, that's all I can say. But he's going to be Negan, which is really awesome. I love him as an actor. And I don't know how they're going to play the character, because they can't drop 12 F-bombs a minute. Because that's kind of what his character does in the comics. Like, he pretty much replaces everything he can with an F-bomb. So I don't know how they're going to play that. He might just say shit all the time, because they can get away with that. But they might still have their limit on how many times they can say it. It may only be like twice. But he'll use them up every episode, I guarantee that. So that was really cool to see, that little preview. And it kind of sucks that they get robbed again, especially Daryl, because he already lost his crossbow and his motorcycle. And now it's the 3 of them, and I'm pretty sure they're going to get robbed again. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out. It's very interesting to see. And it's also very different because in the comics, at this point, what they've done with Alexandria, they'd already met Negan and encountered them and all the crap that they're going to have to deal with. So it's very interesting to see that Alexandria, it may not have fallen. That is something they talk about, where Rosita mentions, like, is this it? They could somehow find a way to take all those zombies out and try to rebuild again, and that's kind of how they do it, which I think would be really awesome if they actually made it and lured them away. Maybe some people, will die, of course, during the process, but, they ultimately come out on top and they get all of them out and they start rebuilding again, and then it's like, wow, we actually made it and rebuilt the city, lost a couple people, but we still rebuilt we rebuilt this giant chunk of the wall that was destroyed. So I'd love to see them do that, because that would be awesome. That's not something that's ever really happened. There's never been like a giant attack and then it's like, alright, we'll just rebuild it and everything's totally fine. It's generally very chaotic. And that's how it goes. Like, they kind of did it with the prison a little bit, where they all took off and they went to the governor's place and got all of his people, and then the whole prison was empty, and then basically when they came back, it was like, alright, let's just fix it up or whatever. But this would be quite different. So I'm looking forward to what we're getting in the second half of this season. This was a fun episode. I don't want to say I was disappointed. I was a little bit, though, because it wasn't as insane as I was hoping for. But I certainly enjoyed this episode. Something that was actually really cool was the part with Daryl, when he was on the radio, when they have the person who's like, help, that was actually Eugene. I was like, oh, that's kind of cool how they did that. It wasn't, it was just like him saying help because he was about to be eaten. And I was like, that's kind of cool. Like, we got that answer. It was actually Eugene during all this crazy chaos. So it officially gave us like what that timeline was, because I was wondering where in the timeline Daryl, Sasha, and Abraham were during that final drive, because I'm like, okay, they had this happen, and then they had like the Glenn episode. I'm like, how long was he under under the trash can? So I was trying to figure out exactly where everyone was. So they gave us a pretty great defining timeline, which I loved. I was like, all right, that obviously Glenn and Enid were at the gates when they let up the balloons before the tower fell, and then this episode gave us the answer, like, all right, this is where they were, and this is, not only is this who was on the radio, but in the timeline, this is what was happening at Alexandria. I think that was like 2 episodes ago, actually. So we were in the mid-season finale during that, during the episode with Sasha, Abraham, and Daryl, which is kind of interesting because it shows how they really manipulate the timeline during these episodes. And it's only been, I think, 2 days, technically, since the first episode, like since the whole quarry thing. It's only been like 2 days. So, a lot of craziness when you think of it that way. That's a crazy, crazy amount of days. Like, it's maybe 3 days. So, like, 48 to 72 hours. That's not a lot. That's insane. To say the least, that's pretty freaking insane. So, it's just like, you got a little bit of time, and that, this is all the stuff they've dealt with. And then we still have the second half of the season, which will probably be another couple of days. It would be funny if this whole season was technically like 4 days long. That would be really funny. But I did enjoy this finale. It sucks to see a character go, but and it was actually surprising. I figured Deanna was just really messed up. I kind of thought she may have been bit, but then it was like, oh, she fell on a blade. So I was like, oh, it wasn't a bite. She just fell on the blade. And then it's like, oh, look at that. She fell on the blade, her leg was messed up, and she got bit. It was like she just got all jacked up. And I'm assuming she let herself get eaten. She took out as many as she could, and then she had a pretty cool ending scene where she was just yelling at them. And it was just like, man, that's pretty nuts. But I did like this episode. I do wish it was all the chaos I was hoping for, but I hope I'm right in thinking that what I've read from the comics is about to happen. So I'm fine with this being the setup and waiting for the mass chaos, because at least it's coming. That's, as long as it's actually happening, that's fine. Like, if it was not happening at all and it was just a huge disappointment, that would suck. Like, this, I think the best example of another episode is actually the season 3 finale. I believe it was the season 3 finale, which is the stuff with the governor, when it seemed like it was about to be the crazy war episode, and all that happened was the prison was empty because they left and went to the governor's place and got all these people. And it was like, that was a pretty anticlimactic thing. And then we got the actual governor stuff in the next season, which is kind of what all the comic book readers were hoping for. So I think that's kind of how they're doing this. Fortunately, not as a season finale and just a mid-season finale. So that's much, much better than, the actual finale thing. But I did enjoy this episode, of course. I want to know what you guys thought about it, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. As far as the 2-minute clip, if you guys actually want to see that, I'm sure it'll end up being online by the time you actually watch this review. It should be up somewhere. I'm sure somebody either recorded it off a TV. It might actually be on AMC. If you watch The Talking Dead, it's probably been on there, or a different clip might be on there. I don't really know, but I'm sure you can try to find it. It's only 2 minutes, so it's not like you're missing like a crazy thing, and I pretty much explained the whole clip. They stopped because of the motorcycle gang, blah blah blah, Negan, and that was the big deal. So you can still find it because it was a pretty cool scene. I just like the dialogue from the main guy on the motorcycle, but pretty cool scene if you want to find it somewhere. But I definitely want to know what you guys thought about this finale, and mostly, whether you've read the comics or not, I want to know what you guys want to see from the mid-season premiere, because with the way they ended it, I think things are going to go bad, because that kid was freaking out a little. He was calling his mom, and I think he's going to say it one too many times. Someone is going to break off from that line, and I think that's when things are going to get really hectic. So, that's my speculation. I want to know yours, though, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.